So I read the Classroom the Elite spin-off manga titled Classroom the Elite Horikita. This is a spin-off manga that mainly focuses on Horikita, and for a while I didn't know this existed until I did some research and found out there was actually a spin-off manga relating to Horikita from Classroom the Elite. And since I'm a huge Classroom the Elite fan, you know I was definitely going to read this spin-off manga. Now this manga has in total 2 volumes. And this spin-off is more of a what-if story, like what if the story mainly focuses on the relationship between Ayana Koji and Horikita. It's not canon. I need to bring this up because some people will probably think this is canon, which is not the case. Something I need to mention in this video as well is that I'm only going to be covering volume 1 of this spin-off manga. I'm not going to be talking about volume 2 yet because that'll be for another video in itself, and that is because the video will probably be really long if I were to cover both volumes 1 and 2. And like always, if you haven't read this spin-off manga, then you should read that before you watch this video because I am going to spoil things that happen in this spin-off manga. So with that out of the way, let's just begin. So we start out with Horikita getting ready to go to school, in which she reminds herself of the things that have happened quite recently. Since this spin-off story starts after Horikita tried helping Pseudo, since Pseudo was at risk of being expelled due to his poor grades. But of course, in the beginning, Pseudo didn't really care about his studies and was a hothead, so of course there was no progress made. And of course, this story takes place after Ayana Koji manages to convince Chabashira into not expelling Pseudo by using points. Also, something worth mentioning is that this story also takes place after the whole confrontation between Ayana Koji and Manabu, which if you don't know, if you have read the original story, then this is something that happens in the beginning of this series in which Ayana Koji defends Horikita from Manabu. Just wanted to point this out because this is going to be brought up in this story eventually. So because she's thinking of all this, she realizes there has been so many things that have happened quite recently, and this is just the beginning as she realizes this is not going to be the end of things. After this, Horikita is heading towards the advanced nurturing high school when she is greeted by none other than Ayana Koji. The two have a small talk, but it was during this conversation in which Horikita asks Ayana Koji who he actually is. Who is Kiyotaka Ayana Koji? And of course, in typical Ayana Koji way, he completely ignores the question and doesn't really answer it completely, and tries to change the subject by asking Horikita if she's managed to check out the entire school, to which Horikita replies by saying no, since she's only been able to check out the main building of the school. This gives Ayana Koji an opportunity to ask Horikita if she's interested in doing a tour around the school with him, to which Horikita, a bit surprised of the sudden invitation, agrees on. But before they do the whole tour around the school, Horikita tells Ayana Koji that she needs to stop by at the supermarket. They go at the supermarket and they're both impressed how many things there are in the supermarket, showing us once again that this school is completely different from your typical high school. After Horikita buys the things that she has to buy, she then tells Ayana Koji that she needs to stop by at her place in order to change outfits. Of course, Ayana Koji wasn't expecting that, but he agrees on waiting for her. After she changes her outfits, they both start their tour around the school, which of course, after looking around the entire school, they are impressed on the amount of things that the school has, but not surprised since they both come to realize that this high school isn't your typical high school. I guess the big highlight in this whole event is the fact that Ayana Koji was really interested in the public bathhouse, which just goes to show once again just how everything is new to Ayana Koji, since of course we all know that Ayana Koji is from the White Room and he's never been able to fully experience these kind of things ever in his life. As Ayana Koji and Horikita are walking, Ayana Koji is very quick to notice a presence, and very quickly he notices that he could have sworn that he saw Manabu, but in the blink of an eye he is gone. Horikita asks Ayana Koji what he is doing, to which Ayana Koji responds saying that he could have sworn that he saw Manabu. Of course, Horikita doesn't take him seriously and thinks that he is joking around. However, this will become a perfect opportunity for Ayana Koji to ask Horikita in the relationship between her and her brother, as based on the conversation that he had with him, it's very clear the relationship isn't great and there's something going on between the two. At first, Horikita is very hesitant to tell Ayana Koji anything, but eventually she does, telling her that according to her brother hates her. This is where she states that she needs Ayana Koji's help in order to reach Class A because she wants to show her brother that she is capable of doing things. And of course, after hearing all this, Ayana Koji understands where she's coming from and agrees to help her out. But it was during this conversation as well that Ayana Koji asks Horikita if she would like to be friends with him. Of course, Horikita is surprised by this, but she eventually does agree on being friends with Ayana Koji, and they both shake hands. And that is the end of chapter 1. And then heading to chapter 2, as Ayana Koji is heading to the school, he notices that Horikita is waiting for someone, and of course he realizes that it's most likely him. Once Horikita sees Ayana Koji, she greets him and walks along with him. Of course, Ayana Koji is surprised since she's never done that before, but of course this is something that's bound to happen from someone who is considered a friend. The school day is normal and there's nothing really interesting happening. However, that is until it's about to be lunchtime. As Ayana Koji is about to head out in order to go to the cafeteria, he is stopped by Horikita, in which she asks him if he's going to the cafeteria there to eat lunch, to which Ayana Koji says yes, and that is when he notices that Horikita is trying to tell him something, but the words can't come out of her mouth. But eventually they do, as Horikita tells Ayana Koji that she made a lunch for him, which of course surprised Ayana Koji because he was not expecting a lunch from Horikita. But realizing that it would be rude to reject the lunch offer, he accepts Horikita's lunch that she made for him. And after eating the lunch, Ayana Koji thanks Horikita once again for the lunch and tells her it was delicious. But at the same time, Ayana Koji asks Horikita if this is going to happen very often, to which Horikita responds by saying that it all depends on him. He quickly realized that this has something to do with him helping her to reach Class A. After school, Ayana Koji and Horikita head off to the supermarket since Horikita asks Ayana Koji to walk with her to the supermarket. Ayana Koji questions Horikita why they're at the supermarket since they went literally a day ago, to which Horikita responds saying that she needs more ingredients since she used all her ingredients to make the lunch that she made for him. After this, Ayana Koji decides to head to the public bathhouse that he was very interested in chapter 1. He decides to go to the sauna, however he is very quick to notice that there's someone else as well, and it is none other than Manabu Horikita, Horikita's older brother. And Manabu invites Ayana Koji to come inside, and that will be the end of chapter 2. As chapter 3 starts, we then get a scene involving Horikita, Manabu, and Ayana Koji in the sauna. However, Ayana Koji is very quick to ask a question to Manabu about the whole conversation that he had with Horikita, and unlike Horikita, Manabu is very quick to respond as to why that all happened, in which Manabu answers by saying that Horikita has a major flaw, and that is that she's trying way too hard to be like him and following his shadow. When Ayana Koji tells him that why doesn't he just straight up tell her that, Manabu responds saying that she won't completely change to a different person in a small amount of time. She needs to grow and become a better person throughout time. Ayana Koji understands where he's coming from, but at the same time, he also tells Manabu that even if he doesn't notice, Horikita is actually changing slowly but surely. Manabu responds saying that he has noticed the change and knows why she has been changing quite recently, hinting that he knows that Ayana Koji played a huge part in Horikita changing quite recently. We then get the next school day in which Ayana Koji asks Horikita what is her plan into reaching Class A. But it's very clear to Ayana Koji that Horikita doesn't have a solid plan, in which Ayana Koji tells her that she's going to have to work with people even if she likes it or not, because working alone isn't going to get them nowhere. And also states that in order to reach Class A, Horikita is going to have to control the class as well. Of course, Horikita is surprised by that comment, but Ayana Koji states that that's going to have to happen eventually in order to reach Class A, and actually gives Horikita a task and try talking to the other classmates that they have and get them to be by her side. The first person he has in mind is Kushida, since she's very popular in the class, and because of her very positive personality and how she's able to talk to anybody, it's very clear that will be useful for the near future. However, Horikita is very quick to reject this since it's very clear based on what she says that there's some history between her and Kushida. The next person Ayana Koji tries getting Horikita to talk to is none other than Sakura. However, things don't go well in that conversation either. The same thing happens as well with Koenji, because well, if you have read this series and you know Koenji's personality, you know he's a person that's very hard to convince. But surprisingly, towards the end, they were able to get someone to be by Horikita's side, and that is none other than the class leader, Hirata. Hirata is okay with working with Horikita and hopes that they're both able to achieve their goals into reaching Class A. After this, Ayana Koji and Horikita are walking alone together, in which Ayana Koji states that they're making progress and that slowly but surely they will be able to get the class to work together to reach to Class A. However, as both of them are having their conversation, they are then stopped by none other than Kushida. Kushida explains that she overheard a conversation that she had with Hirata and tells her that if she wants, she could be also good help as well. But Horikita is very quick to reject her offer and tells her that everything is okay. That is where Ayana Koji intervenes and tells Horikita that regardless of the history between her and Kushida, she shouldn't let that get in the way of her trying to reach her goal to reach Class A. Of course, Horikita doesn't listen and tells Ayana Koji to shut up and to not get involved. Kushida, seeming not to be bothered by her being rejected by Horikita, tells Horikita that everything is okay and that she apologizes for making her angry. But at the same time, Kushida also states that with that attitude that Horikita has, no one's going to want to be by her side. After that, Kushida leaves, and that just leaves Ayana Koji and Horikita once again. Ayana Koji states to Horikita that she should really patch things up with Kushida before it's too late. Horikita seems to not be a huge fan of that idea, but tells Ayana Koji that eventually she's going to clear things up with Kushida. And that is the end of chapter 3. Heading to chapter 4, we begin with Horikita entering the classroom once again. However, she is greeted by several classmates of hers, to which she is surprised surprised by, but at the same time she realized that her classmates are now recognizing her. After that, she has a conversation with Ayana Koji once again, to which Ayana Koji asks her if she made lunch for him, to which Horikita responds by saying no. Eventually the school day comes to an end, and as Horikita and Ayana Koji are walking together, they see Manabu once again, but this time with a person next to him, and that is none other than Tachibana. As you all know, Manabu and Tachibana are both from the student council, so it's not surprising that they're both together. But this is when Ayana Koji asks Horikita if Manabu has some sort of relationship with Tachibana. Horikita responds saying that she highly doubts that her brother has that kind of relationship with her, but Ayana Koji states that in order to verify this, they're going to spend their next day off following Manabu and see what he does in his usual day off. Of course, Horikita is shocked by this, but she eventually does agree to tag along and see what her brother is up to on his days off. These next few moments aren't too interesting because it's just simply Ayana Koji and Horikita following Manabu on the places he goes, but it is nice to see Ayana Koji and Horikita hang out more, and it's very clear that they're doing things that they're not used to doing. With that being said, however, there is one interesting thing that happens when all this was happening, and that is the fact that Ryuen notices that both Horikita and Ayana Koji are spying on Manabu. This was probably the highlight of the chapter, finally seeing Ryuen make an appearance in this spin-off manga, because I really enjoy Ryuen as a character. And another highlight that also is worth mentioning is towards the end, in which of course after Ayana Koji and Horikita spend their day spying on Manabu, towards the end we get this scene involving Ayana Koji and Manabu in the sauna, to which Manabu explains to Ayana Koji that he knows, or he knew, that Ayana Koji and Horikita were spying on him. And of course this surprised Ayana Koji because he didn't think Manabu was very quick to notice that they were both spying on him. And that will be the end of chapter 4. And then here comes the final chapter of volume 1, this being chapter 5. In this chapter, as Ayana Koji is heading to the classroom, he's very quick to notice that there's something wrong with Horikita. She has this very intense and very menacing look, and it's not just him, even some other classmates have noticed there's something off about Horikita. Of course, Ayana Koji, having no choice but to talk to her, asks Horikita what is wrong, but Horikita doesn't answer right away. In fact, all she does is just keep glaring at Ayana Koji very menacingly. Of course, Ayana Koji has to wonder what is even going on and why is she so mad. Is it something that he did? And that's when Horikita decides to finally talk, but instead of answering his question, all she simply says is to meet her at the cafeteria. With no other choice, Ayana Koji agrees and decides to meet her at the cafeteria. Once they meet at the cafeteria, Horikita asks Ayana Koji if he's hiding something from her, to which Ayana Koji responds saying no. However, Horikita is very quick to tell him that he's noticed that there's some sort of connection between him and Manabu, as if they almost have been hanging out quite recently more often than usual. Realizing there's no point in hiding this from Horikita, he decides to tell Horikita up in front that yes, he has been talking to Manabu a lot quite recently. However, they're not close, and the only reason why they have been talking a lot quite recently is because, well, Ayana Koji happened to see him in the bathhouse. However, this doesn't really convince Horikita. In fact, it seems that she's more jealous and frustrated at the fact that Ayana Koji was acknowledged by her brother before her. However, Ayana Koji reassures her that the only way Manabu is only going to recognize her is if she does something about it. He states that the way she's acting right now isn't going to get her anywhere, and throughout these moments we see Horikita realize that she just needs to keep moving forward and try her best into getting acknowledged by her brother. But it seems that after all this has happened, it seems that there's a few people that are planning on taking down Horikita, because towards the end of the chapter we see that Ryuen is talking with somebody who is obviously Kushida, and that is how volume 1 of this spin-off comes to an end. And overall, I really have been enjoying this spin-off manga. Of course, it isn't as deep as the original story of Clash of the Elite, but it is something worth reading, and I really do hope that in the near future we get more spin-offs like this, in which we see the relationship between Ayana Koji and another Clash from the Elite character being the main focus of the entire story. Really do hope we get more of these in the near future, and like I stated earlier, this video will only be covering volume 1 of this spin-off, so look forward to a future video in which I will be covering volume 2. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.